Leo DiCaprio is Andrew Latis, aka the missing patient. If you haven't seen the movie, well, go f yourself. Enjoy the episode.
I don't give a fuck. Just shake that ass, bitch, and let me see what you got. Just shake that ass, bitch, and let me see what you got. Roll credits. Just shake that ass. Roll the credits. Go. Just shake that ass.
So we're watching Shutter Island, or we watched Shutter Island. That's the movie that I picked this week. When I told you about this movie, what was your initial reaction? Because you had an interesting response to it. Well, from how I read it was, ooh, okay.
Pretty much, yes. Like, ooh, good, okay. Because I really do like that movie. The whole psychological thriller that messes with your head of like, okay, is this real? Is this not real? Like, I like those kind of movies. And I don't think I've ever seen a Leonardo DiCaprio movie that I didn't like.
Before you rewatch this for this, do you know how many times roughly you've seen the movie?
If I had to think about it, I feel like I've watched it maybe a handful of times.
Okay, so a good amount, a decent amount.
Yeah.
All right. So the reason why I picked this movie, it's kind of an odd reason. So it's going to be a bit of a story. So anytime I'm not working on a Friday, I go work out with my one buddy at this gym. And every time we work out, he goes and we go our separate ways. And I go get something to eat. It's become a little tradition. And I actually used to work in a building right next to where I went to go eat.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I kind of want to I'm just curious, like what's it look like? So I walked in there. Nobody was in there. The place was dead. It's like a business office, right? It still had that like old office smell, and certain things were different. And I'm just kind of like reminiscing and having this kind of just like weird, like memory lane trip of like what my life was like, basically at this time and where I was in life and kind of everything that led up until me starting at Full Sail. And you're probably sitting here thinking like, how the fuck does Shutter Island come in?
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, where's the point to this story?
I'm sitting there thinking like, God, it was around this time 14 years ago I started that job. And then I said, wait a minute, was it exactly 14 years to the date? And then I remembered, like, I remember the week I started, Shutter Island came out that week. And then I looked it up, and it was, as I was sitting there, 14 years to the day that I started this job, and here I was just randomly there 14 years later. And I had to use Shutter Island as reference because I needed to remember when the movie came out, because I remember at the end of that week, I went and saw the movie opening night with my buddy. And then I thought, I kind of want to rewatch Shutter Island. This is a movie that I had not seen since that opening night. Of course, I remember everything. Little details I had, like the whole Holocaust thing, I'd kind of forgotten about, like that stuff. But obviously, the big twist, you don't forget that kind of stuff.
No, of course not.
But my God, rewatching this movie, and I don't know if you felt this, the subtle details throughout the entire film is amazing.
Exactly. I was gonna talk about that with you too, that there's so many details that I never paid attention to until because I watched it today.
Okay, gotcha. So you're going in pretty fresh. I watched it the other day, but I still remember it pretty heftily. Because like it opens with him looking out at the water, and I'm like,
right.
I remember there's a whole thing about water because, all right, first off, anybody watching that's not seen Shutter Island, you got to watch the movie because we're going to spoil the shit out of it.
Oh yeah. The
whole movie starts where he's splashing water on his face,
right.
And he's looking out at the water, and he even makes a reference to water.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this movie has a whole allegory with fire and water. Anytime there's fire in the scene, it's a delusion. Anytime there's water, it's reality.
Very interesting.
But again, the movie opens and he sees water, and I just remember like, oh my God, there's a whole reveal that his wife drowns their kids.
Yeah.
And then of course they make it to the island. First off, this location is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Sure.
Actually, for someone like you, I don't know if you realize this, they filmed this in Boston.
Oh,
yeah, that's actually So obviously multiple different locations, but the primary exterior
Island.
with all the different buildings, you can actually go visit. It's a state park now. I actually watched a
Nice.
ton of videos on YouTube of people that went and visited. You can actually go visit the actual place where they filmed the movie, and it's in the Boston area. But it's
Okay.
absolutely just
Damn.
gorgeous. This movie is 2010. It came out in 2010.
Yeah.
There's certain scenes that I'm watching. I'm like, this is the visuals in this movie are outstanding. Especially those Holocaust scenes are just like the visuals are haunting.
Every shot that was for his like flashbacks,
Mhm.
like first of all, they transitioned very well
Mhm.
from like his delusion to his flashback, and I'm like, damn, that's so good. And yeah, you're right. It looks great.
And just like for the Holocaust scenes, like the bodies, you can kind of see they're just spilling out of the train, but it all looks like they're just like kind of a blob morphous of people together. It's insane. It's
Especially when you see them in already half covered in the snow, and like one of the bodies is like already decomposing and everything like that. Like, whoa.
Going back to the beginning, you see the scene where they're about to hop on the car, and you see all the guards, and they're all tense.
Yeah.
And of course, the first time you're watching this movie, you don't really know why they're tense, but he makes a reference to it.
Boys seem a little on edge, Mr. McPherson. Right now, Marshal, we all are.
And, the first time you're watching this, you're thinking, oh, they're on edge because something weird must be going on. But then you, obviously, because you'd seen the movie and you know the twist, they're obviously on edge because he's the most violent prisoner
in the entire
island, who probably going to what is referred to later has probably had physical altercations with some of these guards, because he makes a reference to
that when he assaulted the guards, patients, orderlies. Yeah,
right. So he's probably even like physically fought some of these guys and doesn't even know it.
But the scary thing to realize that they're still like trying to bring him back, and they're still tense even though they know who he really is. They still have to play along with it.
Yeah, that was the
scariest part, but you don't really see that at the very end.
That was the one part that I was interested in, is like everybody's playing along. And with the orderlies, I was like, damn, they're sleeping in the same room as him. But they didn't seem like they were on edge, though. The orderlies, they seemed a little more loose about it.
Yes, but also, I think it's also because they're doing their job still. They're taking care of him, and not just that, but you don't really see them very close to him for very long.
But they're sleeping in the same quarters as him.
Yes, they're sleeping in the same quarters as him, but it's a lot of them in one room.
I'd still be on edge.
And you had his psychiatrist there.
Yeah, he wasn't sleeping in the same room, though. Oh, you're talking about Mark Ruffalo. Oh, okay. Yeah. I was thinking of Ben Kingsley, which I kind of wanted to transition to. Yeah. Mark Ruffalo, first off, is great in this movie. That's another little subtle thing where he's trying to take out the gun and he can't do it. And Leo kind of gives him a look. And at first you're just thinking, like, is he just nervous as well? But then obviously this guy's not a cop. He's not a detective. He wouldn't know how to take the gun out. It's great. It's so good. Ben Kingsley is fantastic in this movie, and he plays. So there's two doctors essentially. There's Ben Kingsley, he's like the main doctor, and then there's Max von Sydow. Yeah, and when I first saw this movie, I never understood why I never understood Max von Sydow's character. I'm like, why is this guy in the movie? I don't really understand. Well, no, I get it now. Let me explain.
Okay.
So going back to some stuff I was reading about, this movie takes place in 1954. Apparently, this was a very key time in the mental institution era of everything. And essentially, there was two ways of looking at it, which they explain in the movie. There was Ben Kingsley's way, which is compassion, trying to relate to the patients. And that's another thing. He always calls them patients, not prisoners. That was his whole thing, was compassion. And basically it was because of him that they allowed this whole role play thing in the first place. But then Max von Sydow's character is the complete opposite of that. He's the one that's all for the hardcore lobotomy, all that kind of stuff. And now
All the
I
old
understand
school remedies,
terrible way.
treatments.
Yeah, exactly. And the sad part is he essentially wins out at the end. Or essentially he gets his way and Ben Kingsley doesn't.
Yes, but yeah, he thinks he gets his way, but in the end, you, as the audience, you know that it actually worked on him.
What do you mean?
But he's on Leo's character. They got through to him.
Well, that's
He
the kind of
decided
that's
like he says at the very end, that he'd rather die a hero than live as a monster.
but that's kind of the ambiguous ending is that sure he got through to him, but he already got through to him once before. So what's to say he wasn't going to regress again? But it was Leo's choice at this point
Yes.
to basically intentionally want to go through with this, which is another fantastic part of the movie. I love that ending. Let's talk about some other things. Michelle Williams, such a great job with kind of the mysterious, limited scenes that she's in. Looks really great too. Cutie of the week.
Yeah. That's just wrong.
I mean, that scene though, where Leo and they're at the cabin and he just sees her on the swing, and then he's like, "Where are the kids?" It takes him a minute to realize it. Like, where are the kids?
The kids
And then
aren't
she
here.
goes, and she's like staring at him with like a smirk, and she's like, "They're in school, but they're in my school," and he just sees the body and just
It's heartbreaking. Like you feel for him. You know,
Yeah.
like you just found your kids all drowned, and she wants them to be living dolls.
And that's kind of another sort of moral dilemma that happens in this movie that you have to think about, is that Leo actually blames himself when he comes back to. He's like,
Right.
I never should have relocated our family to this lake. I should have gotten her help. And he
Mhm.
does, in a way, blame himself. He essentially calls himself the reason why his kids died.
Yeah. And it's very understandable why he feels that way too, because like you said, he feels like it's his fault because he didn't like help her from the beginning. Yeah.
Right.
So,
A couple things I wanted to talk about real quick. George Noyce, he kind of refers to him in the beginning as like this, like it's kind of a thought I had. So he's played by Jackie Earle Haley, who he's kind of an
Rorschach.
older guy, probably Rorschach, exactly. But Leo refers to him as this like college kid. And I'm just wondering, like,
yeah.
why that was. Like, does he just not fully remember who this person is, and it actually just turns out he's just another prisoner that he was beating up that whole time? But it's great because his one scene, he does actually just say everything that's going on, but he actually spills out the whole thing. He's like, "This is a game, and you're the subject." He basically tells him, but he thinks
He won't believe it. He doesn't
he won't
believe it
believe
at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
He's also like, "Oh, you're a mental patient in Ward C, which is the worst one. Why would I believe you?"
Right. But yeah, now that you say that this college kid, like, that really does not make sense.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, like, in his head, he thought of it differently, and the reality was something different. Like,
Reality,
Leo
he's an
thought
old
of
guy.
him. Yeah, exactly. But like, he prefers him as a college kid. So did he think? I don't know. Like, because this whole thing is his delusion. This whole thing is his fantasy world. Because he's basically the one that's like, George Noyce told me about this place. Now he's here, this college boy, and maybe in his fantasy, that's the way he saw him. In reality, he's just some weird looking old guy. I don't know.
Probably, yeah.
And I couldn't remember. That was one thing I was trying to remember, is like, wait, because I knew they had tried this before. I was trying to remember. I was like, wait, every time they have to like kind of reset, did they have to do a surgery on him? So I was trying to remember if there were like previous surgeries to like sort of do something to him, but I don't think
remember
that was
them
the case.
mentioning any surgeries.
Yeah, I don't think there was I think it was. Now, from what I understanding, this movie makes a lot more sense to me now than it did the first time I saw it. Because he kind of goes through these like headaches throughout the movie, and I'm like,
Right.
oh, are the headaches because he had already some like little brain surgeries that they experimented on him? But no, it's because of the withdrawals from his medication.
You know, it was funny. While I was watching Shutter Island, I was thinking maybe I should like piggyback on your like little uh insane asylum kind of movie, and all I could think of was Stormhurst Asylum.
Stonehurst Asylum?
You've never seen that?
No.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, what is that?
Well, it's also a Ben Kingsley actually, and he kind of plays this similar type role as like the superintendent of the asylum.
Okay.
But it has a twist to like Shutter Island, which is really good.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil that if you haven't seen it, because it's really good. These two movies are very similar to each other.
I'll have to look that one up. Yeah, man, this movie is almost 2.5 hours long, but I mean, before you know it,
yeah, like in the beginning, it's a little slow. You don't feel it if it's going slow because it's still going. You keep moving throughout what he's thinking, what he's doing, his detectiveness, and it really starts to pick up.
To wrap it up, I mean, this movie, if you've seen it before, rewatch it again for those details, those little things, again, like the whole fire and water theme that goes throughout the movie. Fantastic rewatch. One of the great mystery movies of the last 20 years. And I'm glad that I revisited my old work just to realize that I wanted to rewatch this movie again.
Leo DiCaprio, Martin Scorsese. It's like a win-win.
Win-win, but at the end, Andrew Latis loses his brain.
Oh, ouch.
Anyways, all right, Chris, wrap it up.
Make sure to follow us. Please subscribe, comment, like, stay up to date with us. Cut, print, moving on.
All right, I gotta go take a shit, so I'm about to go to Shitter Island. See you later, Chris.
Boy, you sure you don't need a lobotomy?
Where are the kids?
They're in school.
It's Saturday.